Hello. So this is the school campfire chat. It's something that I'm looking to implement within my school community where we sit down and we just chat for half an hour a week. It's a practice that a lot of school communities put into place to facilitate connection and conversations. I'm looking to build a space where we can just sit around and talk about what we want to talk about and our experiences and things like that. Today, there's still nobody in my community. It's October 10th, 2025. So still looking to build that, but I can still facilitate a conversation by myself. I've got my drink, and I wanted to take a step away from what's immediately going on around us and in our surroundings with technology, with business, with society, with politics, and talk a little bit about human evolution and what's coming up and what we're doing, what's going on. Not too far to look at hundreds of years of history, and I really enjoy looking at history and where we've come from. It teaches us about how we've gotten to the point that we've gotten to and why we've gotten to the point that we've gotten to. It's easy to study evolution on such a macro level of hundreds of years, whether it's political systems since the Greek and Roman times or technological systems since, the wheel or the industrial revolution, the printing press, the engine, or even the internet. I think something that we don't often look at is human evolution itself, as in the way that people behave, the way that people think and act, and why they do. And so, stepping into this middle sort of realm of 3 to 5 generations, and I'd like to look at 3 to 5 generations, of human beings and talk a little bit about that today. And what I mean by emotional evolution and development of human beings specifically, it's how we interact with our ourselves and each other. We do that obviously through physical means. You could say emotionally and mentally through exchange of our ideas and exchange of our emotions, our love, our hate. And the funny thing is that you don't really have to go back in time to do that. As much as you can, we currently have what we define as different generations of human beings existing on the planet all at the same time right now. We have people who, we have the baby boomers, we have Gen Xers, we have millennials, we have Gen Z, we have Gen Alpha, all generally interacting in similar spaces. And that's especially facilitated by the internet because anybody can jump online into various platforms and mediums and start interacting with other people. One moment. I forgot to close the window. So when you get these various generations of people interacting in the same spaces, it really starts to show you differences in people's thought processes, in people's approaches to the world, and to the same spaces. And I had a really interesting conversation with a baby boomer recently where they thought that they knew how the world worked. They thought that because they were older than I was, more experienced than I was, watched more news than I did, that they knew how the world worked. And they were convinced that we're all just people living in the same place. And I thought that was so interesting because I don't see it that way at all. I see it as I'm the main character in my movie, and I can only interact with and experience the world in the way that I understand it. I can't possibly understand everything about the world from every perspective to know everything that's going on. No matter how much I consume other people's perspectives or even visit a lot of places, it's hard to really convince me that any one person knows how this place operates. And for it to be one specific way, it didn't make sense to me. I thought that I was more open minded than this person. I thought that I was better equipped to challenge my own perspectives than they were. And I thought that I was better equipped to consider possibilities, and that it was a more humble approach to engaging with the world as I knew it or understood it. And I'm a millennial. I grew up riding my bike down the street and knocking on my friends' doors when I wanted someone to play with, and talking to my friends in person, not digitally. That came later in life. And if you're a millennial, you know exactly what I'm talking about. MSN Messenger, ICQ, text messaging, emails, instant messaging, all that stuff is pretty new. And then social media obviously took things to a new level where we can interact with each other digitally in such a new way and in so many ways for so many reasons, and reach people in so many parts of the world that we just didn't have when we were younger. I do think millennials are uniquely positioned to understand the perspective and appreciate the evolution of technology in a certain way because we've experienced those things. Gen Zers and those younger generations, they grew up with those tools at their fingertips. They grew up in a world where it was always accessible to them, where they always had access to so much information and so many people. So I do believe that they're more open minded than I am in a lot of ways because they've grown up with the belief that they can access so much more. So to go back to the point about studying human evolution, I think that point specifically about being open minded and being able to consider new possibilities is on display for us every single day. It's just a matter of noticing it or talking about it or appreciating it. I think that we're watching evolution in progress. I think that we're watching emotional evolution live all the time. Gen Zers are considered lazy in the workforce, in the traditional workforce, according to a baby boomer. And I know this because I worked in hiring and recruitment for a couple of years. I worked in a large corporate setting, a publicly traded company before that. And I understand the expectations that come with those traditional workplaces, that you're expected to put in time, you're expected to put in excess time to sacrifice personal priorities, personal time. You're considered It's considered commendable if you're accessible on your time off. It's considered advantageous to sacrifice yourself for the business or for the company. And I respect that those environments still exist and that those frameworks work for a lot of people and obviously have supported a lot of people over the years to feed their families, to accomplish their life goals, their business, professional goals, whatever it is. The Gen Z mentality entering that workplace is that it doesn't align. It doesn't feel aligned to them to exchange their money for time, to sacrifice their personal existence for a company, especially ones that don't resonate with them on a deeply personal level. They're not willing to put in a lot of overtime, especially without compensation. They prioritize themselves over those types of business or company priorities. And in speaking to a lot of business owners, a lot of baby boomers in these different sales positions that I've had recently, the perspective is that they don't want to work. They don't know how to work hard. They don't have the grit. They don't have the qualities that those baby boomers or those types of mentalities appreciate in the workplace. And it's led to this really interesting breakdown, specifically in the workplace, where Gen Zs aren't really getting hired to do those things. But I question it, and I find it fascinating. What I question is, do these Gen Zs have it wrong? And I'll also say, are they missing something? And really quickly before I keep going, I will say, are Gen Zs wrong? I don't think so. I think they've evolved emotionally and they've learned how to prioritize their mental well being and how to develop sustainable lifestyles for themselves. They know that they have the technology and the tools at their fingertips to actually do it. There are many of them who are already doing it, so they don't need proof anymore. There's proof all over the internet. But are they missing something? I think they might be. And what I think they might be missing is the lessons. And it's the grit that comes with that level of commitment to your job, that level of dedication and focus to your craft that has taught those people to be masters at what they do, experts at what they do. And say what you want about the sacrifice that they have made, the sacrifices that they have made to do it. But those people chose to become as good as they are at their jobs by putting in as much time as they did. And I do think that there's a lot of merit to that. I think there's a lot of merit to remaining devoted to what you do. And I see a lot of commentary on social media these days about this clash, this difference in perspective, and this difference in approach to work. And if the argument continues, it doesn't really help anybody. But if there's a conversation that can be had where people can sit at the table together and learn from each other and seek to understand the other perspective, I think there's tremendous power in it for everybody. Because I think that the boomers and that level of commitment to the craft brings about a lot of burnout, and it has a high human cost to it. Those people are suffering mentally, emotionally. We hear about cases of heart attacks or heart disease. I don't know about introducing dementia and things like that, but there's a mental toll, there's a physical toll that it takes on the body and the mind when one sacrifices themselves for a cause other than themselves for so long. It's not sustainable by, I think, even scientific standards, let alone like emotionally, mentally healthy perspectives and those standards. I'm not sure what the best way is to say that, but so the Gen Zers or the Gen Alphas, the younger generations, the ones who've learned to incorporate those concepts into their lives, I think they have a perspective to offer where they can say, hey, there's a sustainable way to do this. There's a healthy way to do this. There's a way to balance these things in order to preserve yourself and still enjoy life and be grateful for what you have and prevent burnouts and crash outs and health conditions. And I think that work ethic is undeniable. The work ethic of the boomers, the elder generation, those who did sacrifice. I think there's a lot to be said for the work ethic, the dedication. Hey, did you know if you dedicated yourself to your YouTube channel for a year, you would have outstanding results compared to jumping between projects? And I've experienced this too, by the way. Like I might sound like I'm just talking and ranting here because I kind of am. There's nobody else here to engage in the conversation. So I kind of turn on this weird lens of lecturing sometimes because I kind of have to. It's kind of podcast setting with nobody else here. I do enjoy it. Yes, I enjoy the sound of my voice. But I say this stuff because I've lived it. You know, I was in that corporate setting and I did burn out and it wasn't aligned and I wasn't taking care of myself. I didn't know how to. I wasn't taught how to balance those things out. I was only taught how to prioritize performance, sacrifice, and I didn't know how to prioritize myself, my emotional or my mental well being. I've been on the internet and tried to build businesses, and I have literally jumped between projects, you know, every 3 months, every 6 months, every other day I was thinking of new ideas of either trying to how to try to refine what I was doing or pivot what I was doing. I didn't have the mentality of sticking with something for a very long time in order to master it and get better at it and learn from it and take the feedback and iterate and continue. So I'm hoping this time is different. I will say that because I'm speaking about things that I really care about. This time it feels like I'm speaking about something that's really aligned with who I am, what I care about, what I think about, what I notice, what I see in the world, and how I think I can help serve the world and actually help people to say, like, hey, did you ever consider this perspective might actually really help you out? I've sat in the middle too, you know, and working low income or minimum wage jobs. Like I suppose it was low income compared to the corporate setting. I cleared tables and I bagged groceries after I worked in those corporate environments because I was trying to get by in entrepreneurship and not making income at the time. So I went, you know, I would go to the back kitchen and talk to people who were cleared tables for a living. And then I would go out front and literally see people that I used to work with or that used to work for me and used to come to me in my floor to ceiling window office and ask me for budget money. And I would go pour them coffee and catch up with them. So I've really lived on both sides. I've kind of straddled the in between. And it's just so interesting to see how people can live in such different worlds. To bring that point back again, too, you don't live in the same world if you are driving your fancy car from your fancy house to your fancy office, having high net worth conversations all day, enjoying your money on the weekends, as someone who takes the bus to work from their low income property and does manual labor all day and then spends their weekends trying to find ways to save more money or earn more money because they don't seem to have enough to pay the bills or they barely have enough to pay the bills. Your priorities in life are very different. Your outlook on life is very different. And acknowledging that you can move between those worlds, as I did, your perspective of the world is very different. Your attitude towards the world, towards your world, yes, is highly relevant as well. There's a way to be grateful for anything that you have, no matter what you have. And there's a way to be spiteful towards the world for what you don't have, no matter what you have. It's a perspective. And I think perspective brings this together in a lot of ways because people can afford to consider other people's perspective. And I think to reiterate the point, we have so much to learn from each other. And the way to mentally and emotionally evolve, now to come back to the point of evolution, if you want to evolve mentally and evolve emotionally, would you not want to learn from the ones who have done it already or who were conditioned to do it from birth in ways that you weren't? I know I would. I would really like to learn from those people because I have ingrained patterns. I have neural pathways developed in my brain that prevent me from embracing certain things, understanding certain things. and I have responsibilities as well that inhibit me from taking certain risks in my life, which is just a situational thing. But if you're not mentally and emotionally tuned to being open to considering possibilities, I think that you're missing out on other possibilities. Seems obvious to say. And I believe that the younger generations represent evolved human beings. And that's the way that it's always been through history. Generations that followed all were naturally going to evolve because they had different circumstances, they had different tools available to them. They learned from the mistakes of the previous generations. Think about the caveman, right? Think about natural selection. It's the same process. How did we learn that saber-toothed tigers were dangerous? How did we learn that those snakes were dangerous? Some of us probably had to die. How did we learn that certain climates were not livable for us? Some people probably had to die. And it's a little bit different from the generational concept, but the principle is that those that follow have the learnings of those that came before them. So naturally, they will be, should be, are smarter or more evolved. I think it's obvious to say that it's mentally the case, but do we consider that it's emotionally the case as well? I read a really interesting article about human in EQ, emotional intelligence, being the driver of value in our economy by the year 2030, because that's when technology will take over a lot of the functions that humans perform that aren't human, based on human EQ. So it's going to matter how you use technology more than ever before by the year 2030. It's going to matter the most in human history how you leverage the tools around you. The tools can do more than they've ever been able to do in human history. It's critically important. And the pace of change is insane. We've never had a period of time where technology has evolved at an exponential rate. But that's what AI basically is. It's an exponentially growing technology. It doesn't grow linearly. And not to get into that, but how we interact with technology is simply a representation of who we are and what we're capable of. It's like money. It doesn't change you, it just amplifies you. It shows you who you always were or who you currently are. I'm pausing a lot in this video. I'm thinking too much about my articles because I take these video transcripts and I work with my AI assistant to transform them into articles for my Substack. And I've noticed that I use a lot of filler words. I've noticed that I get off track sometimes, but I really enjoy just being able to speak freely. So I'm thinking a lot about it. That's why there's a lot of pauses in this video. I'm probably going to post this on my YouTube channel as well as a raw sort of idea share, which I think I need to stop doing, is like overthinking so much about where this is going and just doing what I'm trying to do. But that's just me being in my own head. So let me try to say this again. I think that because of the way technology is evolving, how fast it's evolving, the human beings with the most flexible mindsets are going to be in the best positions to leverage them, to do whatever they would like to do with their lives, whether it's to benefit themselves or others in society. I think those are going to be the winners in the next era of humanity. And what does it take to have a flexible, open, agile mindset? It takes open-mindedness. It takes a willingness to accept the unknown, to embrace what is unfamiliar, to sit with risk and discomfort and learn about new tools and new technology. Because if you learned about AI a year ago, you're behind. If you learned about it 3 months ago, you're behind. And I can never mention technology without mentioning blockchain, because blockchain technology is going to rock our world. It's going to rock our society because it represents value exchange, it represents value storage, it represents ownership digitally, and it's going to change the way we govern because it represents trustless. It is a trustless system. It's a public ledger. And what do we lack in our society today? It's transparency in a lot of ways. So that's coming too. I don't know if it's going to grow as exponentially quickly as AI, but it is going to change our society. So there's more change coming through technology and technological evolution. Who are the human beings that are going to be able to adapt to those changing technologies the quickest? I think it's naturally always going to be the youngest among us because they're the least conditioned. But let's go all the way back to the beginning and take a snapshot of right now, society right now. Look at the 4, 3, 4, 5 generations that we have on the planet right now and consider how they interact with each other, with the world. And which ones do you think are more open-minded than the other ones? I've already said it. But are they learning? Are we learning from the older generations, or are we resisting their lessons because we don't accept their entireties? There's a danger in that, I think. So we better make sure that we learn lessons from those who came before us. Harvest the good, forgive the rest, right? I can't remember who said that, but I heard it in a mindset coaching group. Harvest the good, forgive the rest. It's not something I practice every day. I think it's difficult. I try to practice it every day, but it's difficult. I have emotional conditioning. I have mental conditioning as well. I think I think that's the guts of it. What is that? 28 minutes? Wow. I know how to go along, especially because there's probably 6 minutes worth of pauses in this video. But this is for my Skool community, you know. This is the type of thing that I enjoy discussing, and I think it applies heavily to business because it's, the way that you interact with technology, with tools, with others, how you learn, how you apply, how you intend or want to serve others in society. And that is business. That is exchange of value at the end of the day. So no matter what you're building, your personal brand, like I currently am with this, a product, Skool community, a digital product, a service, coaching, a product-based business, a physical product-based business, whatever it is, however you want to translate yourself into value for society to be compensated for it, I think is going to have a magnifying glass placed upon it in the next few years. And it's going to happen universally. That's why I think I can say that, because of the way technology is evolving. It is going to force us to take more ownership of our lives, ourselves, our incomes, our values, like our net worth, and how you choose to learn, how you choose to evolve is such a key part of that, because let's not forget you can evolve within your life. It's not like you're set. Maybe I should have clarified this earlier. You aren't designated to be as smart as you are, or as informed as you are, or as flexible as you are based on when you were born, or your age, or your circumstance. I mentioned it earlier. Anybody can choose to see their situation however they'd like to. It's about perspective. And we understand through science now about brain plasticity. You can actually change your brain and the neural networks in your brain over the course of your life. It even impacts your DNA, by the way. It impacts what you pass on to following generations. That's massively powerful. So the power does lie in all of our hands. While we might think that our lives are not within our control, and trust me, I've been someone who thought that I had no control over my own life because I had outsourced it all, whether it was to company priorities or family priorities or community ingrained priorities, society's expectations. I felt like I was not in the driver's seat of my own life. And I was supposed to, as most millennials can, I'm sure, attest, I was supposed to have the same job until I was 65 and then retire and then ride off into the sunset. But that's not happening. That is not happening. So, millennials, by the way, you can feel slighted about that, or you can do something about it. And I'm doing something about it. I think we all can. So take the power back, take the power back into your own life and in your own hands, and decide what you want to do. Decide how you want to leverage the tools available to you. Decide how you want to leverage your own brain and how you might want to adapt it to your current situation and surroundings to improve your situation and surroundings, your own life, your own mindset. I think there's tremendous power, and we all have so much power in our grasp, within our grasp, that we don't realize. So evolve. Maybe that's my message today. Evolve. What do you think? I'm curious. If you've watched this far, thank you so much for watching the video. If you've read along with me, thanks for reading. Have you challenged yourself to consider that you can evolve within the span of your own life? Have you challenged yourself to learn from previous generations or adapt to the methodologies and mindsets of the following generations and learned from them, by the way? It's worth a shot.